Today we're transforming this image and give it that cinematic touch to it. Let's go. Alright my guys, we're here inside of Lightroom and this is the only image I pulled off here, and it's a TIFF file because I just retouched her skin inside of Lightroom, as you can see here, but nothing else was done, only the retouching. So this was shot on my Sony a7 III with a 55mm at f2.2. My lens can go down to f1.8, but I shot this at 2.2 because I like to shoot this kind of portraits, this kind of close-ups at a higher aperture to maintain more details. As you can see, her half of the face is sharp here in focus perfectly. Also her ear, everything here is blurry already. So 2.2 is pretty shallow for this kind of shot, but this is the look I was going for. I used an ISO of 250. Always keep the ISO low as possible and a shutter speed of 1/500. I probably could go down with the ISO even more, but 250 is pretty decent. You can see no noise at all, pretty clean shot. We should not be clipping here. Let's switch to the develop module and see if we're clipping. We can just activate this button here to see if we are clipping in the highlights or in the shadows. Let me demonstrate it real quick. If we go too high here with the exposure, we see clipping in the highlights here, and if we go too dark with the image, we can see clipping in the shadows as soon as it happens down here with the blue marker. So we have a lot of wiggle room here to play around because this is a raw file. So let's start off. I usually use my monogram panel to adjust the settings, but today I will use the mouse so you can follow along, you can see what I'm doing. Alright, let's get straight to the editing. So first of all, I usually like to adjust the white balance depending on if I want a warmer image or a colder one. But here I would go for a little bit warmer, just a little tad. Then I just go through the basic slider as usual. Sometimes it's just a little bit of experimenting, but we go down with the highlights here probably. I can also disable the clipping. I don't need this, so let's go with the highlights and see what happens. I would also go down with the exposure, make it more cinematic, because cinematic images are mostly pretty dark, as you can see in movies. I would go up with the shadows a little bit, but also counterweight it with the blacks so we don't lose too much on the contrast, and then play around with the whites, go up a little bit. I would go back, I think a little bit. No, I will keep the highlights down here, go up with the shadows and pull up the exposure a little bit because it's a little bit too dark for my taste. Okay, this looks pretty good. Maybe we go up with the contrast a little bit, say about 5 is good. Texture, we can go a little bit up with the texture if we want to preserve some details, but if you want to make it more filmic lookish, don't go up with the texture. You can actually go down to make it more dreamy looking if you want. So I would just leave it at 0 here, but we can mask out her face. I will show you towards the end how to do this, how to actually just locally sharpen the image, because we want the viewer's eye to concentrate on her face. So let's go up with the clarity a little bit here. So you can see if we go too much up, it looks totally unnatural. So I would just go up like 5. Dehaze, I wouldn't really dehaze it. Sometimes it helps, but in this case I wouldn't do it. I just adjust everything in the tone curve after. I will show you. I usually go up with the vibrance, but yeah, let's see if this helps us here in this case. If we go for cinematic tones, and sometimes I just jump around panels, so I go back and forward. But this is actually what I would do here in the basic panel. Just bring the image back to how it was in real life, kinda. And now we go more into the artistic style. So let's go for a traditional S-curve. This is what I would do here first to see where it goes. And if you don't know how the S-curve works, actually up here are the highlights and down here are the blacks. So let's say blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and whites. So let's raise the highlights a little bit and go down with the shadows so we can actually increase the contrast with the tone curve. Let's go down a little bit. Don't add too much contrast to portrait shoots with women because it doesn't look too good on women usually if it's too contrasty, so just be careful with that. I would raise the blacks here a little bit to add that fade to the image, and then I would still adjust the curve a little bit here till we like how it looks like. Go down with the whites a little bit in the up here in the sky. Then I jump to the blue channel, so just adding some blues in the highlights here. Make it towards down here neutral pretty much. Same with the greens, like that. Adding some greens here. Adding some greens mostly adds that cinematic look because we mostly have this in movies. As you probably see, a little bit of greens, like I'll put 2 or 3. And then here's where the color grading actually happens. So I wouldn't play with red and orange too much because it will affect her skin tone a lot. So let's see what we can do with the yellows. Go down a little bit. Green, usually I pull it to the left, to the yellows, depending on the image, but we don't have any greens here, so it doesn't make sense. Maybe with the aquas, because we have blue tones here in the rails, so we can go more teal. And see, we have the teal and orange already. Don't go too much here. I just like to do it subtle. Also with the aquas, we don't have any purple and magentas, I guess. Just, yeah, just a little bit very subtle. So I'm gonna keep it around here to make it match the rails actually. Magenta, let's see. Usually just play around with it and you will see where the colors are or if anything changes, but it looks like not. So let's take down the purple a little bit. As you can see, here are some purples. Usually I don't like to keep them in my images. Maybe go up with the blues or go down. This is more cinematic looking, right? We can actually go down with the blues. Everything cinematic is pretty faded out. Let's do that. That cinematic look. Also take out the yellows a little bit. It's too much in her face in my opinion. Let's see what we can do with the oranges still. Yeah, it's affecting her face too much. I don't like it. So I keep it around there. Maybe go down with the reds a little bit, and let's see with the saturation. Yeah, I like that kind of blush on her nose here because it was pretty cold, so we'll leave that. Maybe exaggerate the sun. And luminance, usually I go up with the oranges to make the skin pop a little bit more. See what we can do with the yellows. Also here, I don't like this kind of stuff, so this is also too much, so I will keep it on the higher end here because it looks too, I don't know, too weird when I pull it down. Let's see what we have here. Skin tones are more in the reds in this image, so let's see. Oops, keep it around here. See what we can do with the rails. Usually I keep it down, everything around her, because it makes the model pop out more, of course. There's a little trick here. And now let's go to the color grading tab, which is pretty interesting to use. So what I would do is get the saturation up a little bit and go around the globe actually to see what colors can match this kind of scene. I see purple or blue, so I go with blue. Turn down the saturation a little bit. I take down the shadows here once again. Midtones, I actually do add a lot of warm tones to the skin tones, to the midtones, because the skin tones are usually in the midtones. So what I would do is add a little bit of yellows. Yes, go up with the luminance a little bit, make her skin pop out, stand out a little bit more. And also in the highlights, I like to add some greens here to finish up or round up that cinematic kind of look. I hope you agree with me with this look. Let's see. Okay, let's jump into details here. I like to sharpen my images just a little tad, about 40, and in the details also. And then I like to mask it out. But if you can see, if you slide around here on this slider, nothing happens. So you have to press down Alt or Command on Mac, and then you can slide. And as you can see, it just masks out the sharpness. So everything which is white is going to be more sharp than the rest. So I like to keep as minimal as possible on her face sharp, because I don't want the whole image to be sharp, just the model itself. Let's see if we can see a before and after. And I actually do here in her eyes especially. I don't know if you see it on YouTube, but I can definitely see a significant difference here already. Oh, sorry, just a mosquito. Had to catch that one. I don't use any noise reduction here because it's pretty clean. This image is very clean. I was lucky to pick the right settings. All right, I see some fringing going on here. As you can see, it's a little bit magenta-ish. So I go here to the lens correction and defringe this. Okay, it doesn't work because it's more on this side, I think. Yeah. Let's see if it even changes something. Yeah, it does. So I will just leave it like that. All right, let's go down here to effect. We can of course add some grain here because, you know, in film, always add that grain. Look at this grain, man. Oh yes. Okay, no, just keep it a little bit subtle. I don't like to overdo it. This is maybe too much already. You can also change the size, of course, make it more soft. Also the roughness, kind of hard to find a sweet spot, which looks good. I think this looks pretty good. The last thing I would do is adjust the primaries here in the calibration tool. What I would do is go down with the blue primary and go up with the red primary. It's pretty hard to explain how this really works, but I go usually up with the hue primary towards orange, and the blue primary I go towards teal for that orange and teal tones. If you go full ham, it's going to be that orange and teal kind of look too much. So then from here, I usually adjust this on my, depending on my likings. I usually go up here and go down with the blues. See that cinematic look is popping out now. And then you can adjust the hue if you want to. But this is actually a pretty sweet spot, I would say, before and after. Calibration actually adds a lot of tones to it and a lot of good looking tones. So let's see a before and after here. Just real quick, inside of Lightroom, we just created that cinematic look. So now let's sharpen her face a little bit, but just locally. So I use the masking tool up here. I thought it's K, it's Shift, dude, man. Shift W? I usually use K to do this. Oh, it's the brush with K. Okay, it's still right. I just installed Lightroom here freshly on this computer, that's why. Okay, let's go and just paint around her eyes and nose. And this is actually where I want to sharpen her face, not more. And from here, I just gonna add some texture. Let's see if this is enough for and after. And it does add a little bit of sharpness here at the right place. What we can also do is another vignette if you want, or with the new select subject tool, we can select the subject or let Lightroom select it. I hope it does a good work. Let's see. Ah, it also takes the rail. Okay, it doesn't matter. Oh man. Okay, I gotta add this rail down here at least. Still waiting for the day until Lightroom does it perfectly for me. Okay, now we can use this mask and actually disable the overlay and go down with the exposure to darken the background so she stands out even more. Also take out a little bit of contrast from the background. We can also adjust it here, you know, with sliders. Pretty cool, right? And maybe we can also adjust the temperature. Let's see if this makes any difference. Yeah, actually not so much, but this is actually enough. So let's close this and let's see before and after again. And look how great this looks. Before, after, before, after. This is an insane transformation if you ask me. So yeah, this is the end of this video. I hope you learned something here, how to transform your image inside of Lightroom in a couple minutes actually. So this was pretty much live, not a lot of cutoff. I hope you enjoyed this kind of video. I also created a preset pack which you can purchase on my website. This preset is also inside, but today this was just a little breakdown or rundown of this look. I created my preset pack very carefully so it fits a lot of images, and there's also a tutorial on my website how to apply the preset and how to make the adjustments to make it look good on every image. Feel free to check it out down below. And also, if this video was informative for you and you learned something, please consider to comment down below and subscribe my channel. That would help me a lot and would motivate me to post more content like this in the future. So I will catch you in the next video.